turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking on the freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around, turn me around. No, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let discrimination turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Gonna let discrimination turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let no hatred turn me around. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom.
Good evening, and welcome to We Believe Digital Studios. A black woman and white man at the crossroads, Sizzling in Mississippi. And Chris Young alongside Maati, Jone, Primm. Good evening, Miss Primm.
Good evening. How we doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm just a little bit sticky and foggy, but I think we're gonna. It didn't like that's the first time.
Well, it's July in Mississippi.
It's July in Mississippi.
So it is sizzling.
It really is sizzling. I was just looking at I think we got 85 degrees here, and man, oh man, it's going to be like a freezer. By 6 in the morning, it's supposed to go down to 72 degrees.
Oh my goodness, get out the sweater.
Get the sweater.
We're not used to that.
Matt, no, we're not.
Anymore.
No. But we're so glad you're joining us tonight. We do have a call-in line, 1-800-492-5186, and or you can join us in the chat. We would love to have you, and we've got a whole bunch of different topics lined up tonight, and we'd love to hear what you think about some of these subjects. So, do you have any preference where we kick off?
You want to start with the mortgages, ownership?
Let's do it. You know, and this comes from a lot of different sources, but this will not be the first time that our viewers will hear about this gap, this profound gap in the home ownership rates of home ownership, but Hope Credit Union compiled from a whole bunch of different sources, including some of their own. Their chairman goes and testifies up in Washington about these subjects. One of their officers goes and speaks to the Mississippi legislature about some of these topics, but they really focus on the Deep South. You know, they have a footprint in 5 states:
yes.
Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Again, this is Hope Credit Union, and also Hope Enterprise Corporation, and they report a more than 25% gap between black and white home ownership in the Deep South, and they go on to say that the gap has widened. They looked at the years 10-year period 2009 to 2019. Mississippi and Tennessee also experiencing a 7-point increase during that time, and you just think of all the poverty down here. You think of the people that do so much to be able to get that down payment,
right?
To be able to find programs, but certainly there's going to be money involved, you know, and people working so hard, and as I'm about to tell you, the denial rate for black people so far exceeds the denial mortgage rate for white people. Make you sick to your stomach. Not only has the rate not only not recovered from the Great Recession now, it's steadily fallen every year in the decade since to its lowest point in 40 years. Now think this through. If you can even imagine this possible, black borrowers, they got a cohort, black borrowers that reported income of $150,000 a year. Experience a denial. They're trying to get a mortgage.
Right.
And they experience a denial rate 34% higher than that for white borrowers earning between $31,000 and $50,000 a year.
That's nuts.
So when you ask yourself that, when you're dealing with those kind of numbers, when you can demonstrate that type of income, it's easy to fill out the application. All the numbers are going to go in the box very smoothly.
Right.
And when they look at their ratios and factors that they use to determine, so what can it possibly be?
It's racism. I've been a victim of it myself. I used to be a mortgage broker, so I'm familiar with requirements and terms and procedures and such. And they had me to write a letter to say why I would want to live in Mississippi. Nobody does that.
Yeah, what is that?
Right. What is that about?
Yeah.
Why would you want to live here? I was absolutely astonished because I know that that's something that doesn't occur anywhere else. So I just took my business elsewhere. But one thing that I've noticed here is that, and it's difficult for black people around America to secure mortgages, but it's not difficult for black people to secure car loans. Now, one sure way that people create wealth and increase their wealth is through home ownership and real estate purchases. So that's something that has been denied to black people. A lot of redlining still going on, regardless of the fact that there's a Fair Housing Act that was signed, more than 50 years ago.
Right.
But it really doesn't have the teeth of enforcement that it should have. Now, black people can buy pretty much any type of car that they want to, and that's allowed. Of course, the usury rates are astronomical here, as they are in many other places, but we're still allowed to invest in an asset, i.e. a car,
right,
that is a depreciating asset. No one gets wealthy from buying a car. No one gains wealth from buying a car.
But still a major investment.
Still a major investment, especially here when you consider the price of cars versus the price of houses.
Right.
The housing stock here is very low. I mean, you can buy a house for $30,000, no problem. High 20s, on up. But this is what's available. Yet and still, black people are denied even mortgages for houses of that small investment.
It looks like they're trying to appeal to the regulators. The people over at Hope Credit Union are trying to appeal to the regulators to, apparently there's some type of data that's supposed to get reported out.
Right.
And
sort of a voluntary process, though.
Well, I guess that's what they're asking, for that to have some teeth in it.
Yes.
Because they feel like that's the only way that people are going to truly know that these practices are going on.
Right.
As you said, this active modern day racism.
Right.
And we've talked before on the show about the thing with the appraisals.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. Where black homeowners' properties are appraised at a lower value than the same or equal property of whites.
Remove the blackness from a home.
Yeah.
Have another appraiser go in there, and the value goes up $100,000 or something like that.
Right.
Just
It's unbelievable.
pathetic.
Yeah, it is. It's sickening.
My dad was a real estate appraiser kind of like as a third career in his later years.
Yeah.
And he would lose sleep. He was just fastidious, and I used to type up some of his reports on the IBM Selectric.
Oh, sure.
I was on that, and boy, if I put any of that ink on the edge of the box, not centered exactly in the box, he made me redo it. He was very precise, and if he was alive, to know about this stuff today would make him crazy.
Yeah.
A whole industry now in the spotlight.
Yeah.
A whole industry, and a critical industry.
Right, it is.
Setting the values.
Right, because banks listen. Mortgage banks listen to this. I was at one time a licensed real estate appraiser.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me how you're doing a lot of comparison in the area, how much houses are worth, and how somehow they manage to devalue properties of black people. That takes a lot of effort to do. Yeah, it's not easy.
So, and the last piece from that is that in Hope Credit Union's five state footprint, they found 37 of the 38 what are classified as rural majority black communities are also considered. So 37 of those 38 are also considered to be in persistent poverty. And the definition that's used for that at the federal level is meaning poverty rates of over 20% of your population for a period of more than 30 years. And so it looked like they're trying to do something. I was happy to see the reporting. I kind of stumbled into it. Some guy had tweeted something that got my attention, and the numbers were very, very similar to this, but he didn't cite a source.
Okay.
And then I ended up calling the Mississippi Economic Council, talked to those people for about an hour and a half altogether, two different people today. They didn't know anything about it, which that was somewhat disturbing in itself.
Yeah, that is.
I asked them, are the Mississippi Black Contractors Association, are they a member? Absolutely, they're a member. I said, well, I'm just shocked to hear if they're one of your members that you don't know about this.
Right.
So she said they promised to look into it and get back to me.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Don't hold your breath. But when we're looking at these rural counties that are majority black and have this persistent poverty, we can ask ourselves, where does the poverty come from? It comes from the fact that economic investment is impossible.
Impossible. They got the knee on the neck for any type of economic advancement whatsoever.
Right. Redlining, health care, lack of quality education. They all go hand in hand. They're all part of what Dr. Neely Fuller describes as all areas of human interaction are affected by racism.
Right.
And so we see this right here. For more than 30 years, that at least 20% of your population is living under the poverty level. It means that opportunities for economic progress simply are not there.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's very sad. Very sad. And I want to tell you too. I don't know if I can readily find it, unfortunately, but it was back in June. I sent a letter to an email to the lieutenant governor. Wouldn't you know, I'm not going to be able to find that right there.
Okay, that would be Delbert Hoseman?
Right.
Okay. Did you make a request?
Yes.
And that was?
That was, I made nice in the first few sentences and all, and then I told him I have a request for you.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, because he was involved with the financing to make the medical mall happen.
Okay.
directly involved. I'm told that, at that perfect timing when that thing went through, without his involvement, that might not have gone through the way it went through. So I have that, in the back of my mind. Okay, well, you did something good, which ended up being for the county, for the black community, is the way I look at it. So my question to him is, what did you do this year to promote advancement of black business in our black capital? And second question, what's on the drawing board for next year for creating more black economic engines throughout the entire state of Mississippi? And although I can't seem to grab it right now, that had to have been a month ago, maybe even 5 to 6 weeks ago. I haven't gotten a response.
Right. And he's currently running for lieutenant governor?
Yeah.
Yes. Secretary of State right now? Or is he?
No, he's lieutenant governor now.
He's running for re-election.
Re-election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Running for re-election.
And I hope he wins.
Why?
Well, because the guy that's running against him is Chris McDaniel.
Yeah, I
Just the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
We're stuck.
That's
We
hard.
might not be stuck in the governor's race. There could be an open window there for this guy, Brandon Presley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Christopher McDaniels has just been a horror for black people.
Yeah.
Such to the point that a number of black people voted in a Republican primary, senatorial primary for Thad Cochran, just to make sure that Chris McDaniel would be outvoted.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah,
And
that's terrible that a bunch of Democratic voters, black voters, voted for Thad Cochran, who isn't a man known for being friendly to black interests, but yet and still, almost anything is better than Chris.
And so,
McDaniel.
and did I tell you about the road trip I made? Did we talk about that last week?
No,
I didn't?
I don't think so.
I must
Where'd you
be
go?
losing my mind.
Okay.
I went to New Albany.
Oh, okay.
I must be confusing it with talking about it on the Newsbreak show.
Okay.
But last weekend, there was an article in the Mississippi Free Press on June 22nd
Okay.
claiming that state senator, Republican female, white, from Union, Benton, and Pontotoc, pardon me, was stirring the pot about the old flag.
Oh, that. Okay, I'm sorry. You did. I
Okay,
just didn't
okay.
realize it was New Albany.
Okay, yeah, that's
Right.
that's where she lives.
Ah.
That's in the middle of Union County, so that's why I decided to go up there.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of his things. That's one of McDaniel's things.
Right.
So there's
Right.
people thinking that she's trying to carry some water for him, get some favor from him or whatever.
Okay. Well, I mean, even if it comes back, it's going to come back with a high expense, a very expensive price tag attached to it, because it's going to make it that much harder for University of Mississippi, otherwise known as Ole Miss, to recruit black players.
Yeah.
But I don't think black players should play for Ole Miss anyway.
Yeah, I tend to
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
It's something you said earlier, the phrase, people need to bring their business elsewhere, when we were talking about the mortgages and the wealth gap
Right,
and
yeah.
home ownership gap.
Right.
But I think that applies in so many different areas. And you had mentioned on the last show, I think it was the last show, that when we were talking about affirmative action, you had mentioned, and I have some more on affirmative action for tonight, but and you had mentioned, the heck with those colleges. Go to HBCUs.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, Maati, that who knows? Maybe there's going to be this whole thing with what they've done with affirmative action. Maybe that can set up some type of competition, because maybe people will go to HBCUs, and then those other enrollments will dwindle, and then they'll finally get their head uninserted,
Right.
and maybe they'll make some changes. I don't know.
Well, one thing I noticed, I attended a HBCU, but I also attended a predominantly white institution. And when I came back from the historically black institution, I had a friend of mine ask me, well, what's the difference? Is there any difference between the PWI and the HBCU? And I said, just one. And that's the lack of racism. Yeah. Which makes matriculating far easier.
Far easier. A breeze.
Yeah.
That becomes a perfect segue to the next thing on the list. So we're about out of time for this segment. So we're just going to dip out for a minute. Thanks again for joining us on Sizzling in Mississippi, and we'll be right back.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi, Black Woman and White Man at the Crossroads. We're just kind of chopping things up and talking about different subjects. And you know, I came across I watched a movie over the weekend, Maati, that I hadn't watched in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, Down in the Delta.
Sure.
And of course, I've had a mad crush on Alfre Woodard for
Ever.
too long. And when she got them eyes going, oh my God Almighty. You know, it's like a whole other level of interaction, you know. And then I came across this quote today by Nikki Giovanni.
Yes.
That I know you're very familiar with. You know her too, didn't you?
Yes, I've met her before.
Yeah. And just a simple little quote: "Black love is black wealth."
Yes.
And here you are talking about, you know, well, what's the difference between an HBCU and a non-HBCU? And you say, well, there's no racism.
Right.
You know, they got this thing called love there.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yes.
And it's so amazing that all ties in. And I don't want to be like sappy, mushy. I mean, I could be, but you know, this is what I try to explain to people, and people just look at you like you got 3 heads, you know. But I can't watch a movie like that without sobbing.
Yeah.
The love that uncle hadn't seen her since she was a little girl.
Yes.
And in his own way, he brought her back.
Yes.
Brought her back from the margins.
Yes.
Back into the real life.
Yeah.
I can't watch The Help without sobbing. And I can't go to a football game. You know, grown man standing in the stands at one time or another, up in the cheap seats, of course, and at some time during that game, and chances are more than one time during that game, maybe a lot on halftime, but sometimes it's other stuff that happens, like when you have a Alcorn fan sitting on the wrong side because he's married to a Jackson State fan, and everybody ribbing him to death, but then showering in love.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to get around to is, you know, simple little quote: "Black love is black wealth." Yes. You know, and this must be present in other cultures. It must be present with other races.
Yeah.
The affection, the indomitable spirit, the ability to live life day after day after day, knowing that there's all kinds of people out there that do not want to see you succeed.
Right.
All for the wrong reason. But something about black people, something about the black culture, something about, it's like it's like when you see people greet each other.
Yes.
Well, for God's sakes,
It's beautiful. Yes. Yeah.
You may not have any idea what that person's doing. You might not even know them.
Right.
But it don't matter half the time.
Right.
Because if you make the effort, they'll make the effort, and something happens.
Right.
I've seen it thousands of times over.
Yes.
I don't know if I either don't see that in other races and other cultures, or if it just means more to me somehow. And so I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
And ask for your thoughts on that, because God knows you know far more than I do about it.
Well, I've seen it and experienced it so many times. I remember going to Washington, D.C. for a march, and I decided that, and I was going to go over to Baltimore and spend the evening with a relative, but I decided that I wanted to walk around for a while. I had been cramped up traveling and wanted to kind of stretch my legs. And so I walked around the area of D.C. that's considered like the hood, with a suitcase and rolling behind me. And there were people who were sitting in doorways and sitting in windowsills and greeted me like, "Hi, how you doing today, sister, brother?"
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just, the idea of sisterhood and brotherhood in the black community is something that's a real universal concept. And we could be anywhere and that happens. And so I can go anywhere. I mean, I've been Jamaica and different places, the Bahamas and islands and different places, and the same thing holds true.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a marvelous thing that happens. And, it's like if we have to be discriminated against, if we have to suffer the slings and arrows of the misfortune of racism, we at least have each other. And that's a big thing. And it makes up for a lot of shortcomings that we find just trying to live our lives day to day.
And still I rise.
And still I rise. It's really a wonderful thing that happens.
No matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost without exception.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've been invited places and, it's getting late. Did you want to stay the night?
Yeah. People you might not know that
I don't
well.
know. Yeah, no, that I've just met.
Just met. Yeah.
Yeah, the bus is laying over. Well, do you need a place to stay? Oh, well, mine's coming up. I think they said they can get me a bus in a few hours. Oh, okay, well, here, come on and walk around the city with us, and we'll keep you company. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
And people are like, how can you do that? I'm like, it's black love is black wealth and black safety. Yeah.
And support.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes I see support, and again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other cultures, but
Sure.
but it's just so noticeable to me. It's noteworthy to me. But sometimes I see, and of course, women are wizards at this. So much better than guys. Guys are so clunky and rough around the edges and all. But I see a woman make. And just a tilt of the head or a nod of the chin or just a slight little inflection of some sort, and a message is being sent.
Yeah.
And a message is being received. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing.
It is. It's wonderful. Like I said, it's for compensation. It's a wonderful thing.
For compensation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's why I say, later for Ivy League, they don't want us there. We can be loved at a HBCU. I've attended private HBCUs where the instructors have been there for 10 or more years.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, when I graduate, I'll be making the same amount of money that they are there,
Right.
if not more.
Right.
But they're committed to
They have a
educating
mission. Yeah.
people that they're willing to take less
A purpose.
monetarily. Yeah, but
Yeah.
they have just this great purpose. Yeah. That's their wealth.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Isn't it funny how little things will just jump out at you?
Absolutely.
And speaking of jumping out, Essence Festival down in New Orleans, Jill Scott.
Yeah.
I mean,
Whoa.
Miss Neo Soul.
Yes. The queen. The queen.
Yeah.
Yes. At Essence, she sang the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
And she did so using her own words, not the standard lyrics of the song. And I'll read those to you. She sang, "Oh, say can you see by the blood in the streets that this place doesn't smile on you, colored child, whose blood built this land with sweat and their hands, but will die in this place, and your memory erased. Oh, say, does this truth hold any weight? This is not the land of the free, but the home of the slaves."
So she replaced a huge portion of what had been the anthem, and what it must have taken to do that.
Yes.
After we talked on the phone today. Oh, and by the way, it was Ariel that had told me about that on Friday.
Oh, okay.
And remember, I told you somebody had told me, and I
Yes.
couldn't remember. It was Ariel.
Okay.
And I had a crazy schedule Friday, and I just didn't remember. And so when we talked earlier today,
Yeah.
and obviously went and looked it up right away and everything, and then I kind of meditated on it for a while, and I was thinking a lever of resistance.
Yes.
A lever of resistance.
Yeah.
Get people's attention.
Yes.
And God knows, what'll happen as a result. I mean, you see these crazy comments online, but no matter what happens, I mean, there's always going to be that segment. I can't help but think about football season's coming up 2 months from now.
Right.
Begins September, right? So here we are, which made me think of Colin Kaepernick.
Right. Yeah. All of this goes back. This made me think of Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. No words.
Right.
Just the
guitar solo.
phenomenal.
That was during Woodstock.
Yeah.
And unbelievable.
Yeah.
It certainly set a pace. And the way that he performed it, with great pain and distortion.
Yes.
It really told the story without words,
Without
but
telling
really
the story.
right.
Without
verbalizing. Then we go to people like Marvin Gaye, right?
Yeah.
Now he sang it, but he did his own particular version, very soulful, and he didn't change the lyrics. Yet and still, he was given a great deal of criticism. Probably just as much as Jill Scott has received.
Yeah.
Then we fast forward to Whitney Houston, and people liked that one.
Yeah.
But Whitney was always sort of, unfortunately, out of touch with issues. She never grappled or even tried to grapple issues in the public that I've ever seen. I could be wrong, but I never saw that with her. So now we have Jill Scott. But
no taking a stand on things.
No, not
acquiescing.
Or I don't even know if she acquiesced, but it just sort of was something that she just never
Not her lane.
Not her lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. For better or for worse.
Pardon me.
But I thought that that Jill Scott really addressed it. There was another vocalist in, I believe it was Colorado, Renee Marie, and they asked her to open the State of the City address or the State of the State address with the singing of the Star Spangled Banner. And she did, but what she did was she used the melody of the Star Spangled Banner, but instead of the standard lyrics, she used the lyrics from Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is a Black national anthem.
Yeah.
And the people stood there, they didn't know the difference. But later on, you know, they criticized her heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal performance. Yeah, by all of these people, I think. Whitney included. I thought hers was vocally just exercising greatness.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a song that I don't sing. I had the opportunity to sing it at a professional baseball game, and I had to turn it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just isn't who I am. One of the verses in the Star Spangled Banner, the original banner, says, "And where is that band who so vaunt..." Okay, I'll get through this part and just get to the part where they say, "Their blood was washed out, their foul..." let me do that again. "Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps, pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and the slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave."
Right. Right. You never hear that.
Never. And so, but because it's there, and it is a part of the song, and the song really speaks of a lot of violence, even the part that is always sung. You know, the perilous fight and the ramparts we watched.
Bombs bursting.
Yeah, bombs bursting in the air. And it's no peace, no negotiation.
Francis Scott Key, a slaveholder.
Yeah, hegemony. Yeah. Hegemony in song, bullying in song.
Thank you so much for that. We'll see more to follow.
Right.
No doubt.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the people who criticize her are people who are not her supporters anyway.
Yeah.
I think her fan base thought it was terrific.
Ron DeSantis might not be scrambling for tickets to her next show.
No, I don't think she'll mind.
So we got two little sections left, and but we'd like to welcome our new folks coming in. Good to see you there, Mr. Williams. And Ariel, if we could go ahead and dip out now for our commercials, and then we'll be right back for the final segment.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
SocratesGarrettNT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into MDOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
And welcome back to Sizzling in Mississippi. We're so glad you're joining us tonight. Been having a good discussion about so many things going on and trying to have a deeper understanding of all these issues. We're heading into our final 20-minute segment, 18 minutes or so. And I saw this news today, Maati, this about these psych beds. And I can't help but think, we're in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. We're in Jackson.
Yes.
Per capita, the blackest city in America.
Right.
Ain't no mental health problems here. With the poverty and the racism and the oppression of all different types going on.
Yeah.
So, clearly there's such a need, and yet these powers that be that wield all these big monies around mm-hmm. are cutting back on these beds. St. Dominic's closed 83 beds, behavioral health beds, announced it on June 5th. And then over the 4th of July weekend, what they call psychiatric diversion going on at Merit Health and UMMC. Their beds are full. 71 beds at Merit Health, mm-hmm. 33 beds at UMMC. Merit also has a geriatric mental health unit. We got the state hospital, but that's kind of a separate issue.
Right. The state mental hospital.
But right. these the whole hospital's but these programs are diverting people now because they don't have the bed space.
Right.
Because the beds are full.
Right.
So, where are they going to divert people? They're going to, we got more health resources in Jackson than anywhere else in the state.
Right. Well, typically, the institutions of mental health say that black people cannot be healed or treated correctly with therapy, and that therefore we should only be medicated. So in order for that to happen, it doesn't require bed space.
Yeah, I've never heard that one.
I've heard it often.
Well, I was in that field for so long, and mm-hmm. A very, very good percentage of black people in the environments that I was in anyway. Mm-hmm. Partial Hospital in the hood in Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay. That may be the reason why, because you were in a neighborhood, but typically the overall structure does not take the mental health of black people
seriously.
No.
And then there's the stigma itself, and maybe one causes the other.
I doubt it. I think it's caused by racism. I don't think it's caused by black people being resistant to mental health treatments, but I think that it was long decided, long ago in enslavement, we were always treated as if we weren't human. We were treated as animals, and so therefore you don't use therapy on an animal. We were always taught that we were less intelligent, yet and still we're the ones who were building everything, creating the rice economy in the United States, animal husbandry and training horses and basically doing everything. And so obviously that takes a great deal of intelligence and know-how. But at the same time, there had to be a rationalization for the treatment that we received. And so with that treatment, they said, well, they're subpar.
So if there's 71 beds in Merit Health in Jackson, and they're full, and they're practicing diversion to other places right now, how many of those beds do you think would have black people in them?
A lot. But at the same time, they're diverting as many cases as possible. They'll probably keep the ones who have excellent insurance for the sake of just draining that, but they're really not interested in helping black people with mental issues any more than they're interested in helping black people who have health issues.
It just kind of all things, of all services to curtail. When was it we were talking about, I think really when we started this show, which was I think back in December. Somebody had was it the NICU? They had curtailed. Was it maybe Merit?
It was over there on Chadwick Drive. Yes, that's a Merit hospital.
And so in other words, different hospitals providing different services and all. But it just
neonatal.
seems it just seemed
care. They closed that.
It just seemed to me that like to me that's a critical service.
Absolutely.
And it just seems to me that so isn't mental health. And you have so many ties in with mental health and violence and harm being done and death and injury. It just seems I just can't understand how a hospital can close 83 beds and the other ones are maxed out and now diverting people. You have the Hinds County Behavioral Health, a 16-bed crisis stabilization unit, and really what that's all about is trying to prevent a more significant hospitalization. Come into a crisis stabilization unit, stabilize what's going on with you, hopefully within a 24 to 72 hour period, get you the meds that you need, get the nourishment you need, et cetera, and be able to avoid going into a psych, like a big time psych bed. But only 16. If it's needed, sure. Well, and they do that too. I mean, if they get people in crisis state that they just know that they need a higher level of care, they're obligated to do that. But there's some data that I found today from January 22nd and the crisis stabilization units have the right to refuse. And from January 22nd to January of 2022 to March of 2023, they admitted 109 people into this 16-bed crisis stab. 16 beds, 109 over a 14-month period. People are staying for a little while. And which means others are being rejected. But when when the diagnosis is mixed in with a bias, then you have conclusions that say, well, black people don't feel pain as much as white people do. We could be branded. They took 109 people in and they denied 194 people. But that's at Hinds. And
So about a third, roughly, of only a third of the people who requested treatment
got in.
received.
And with that 109 admissions, when you got 16 beds over 14 months, those programs are typically designed to, it's not designed for people to be staying there for a week.
Right.
Again, crisis to stabilize the crisis that the person is in.
Right.
Now, on the good news, Merit Health. So you got Merit Health 71 beds diverting right now because their beds are full, but they're also going to be opening another facility with 50 beds in Jackson, but that's not going to come till later this summer. 20 adult beds, 20 adolescent beds, and then 10 chemical dependency beds.
That's insufficient.
Well, so that'll add to the 71 that they have. But, I still think we're going to be on the low end of things, but just wanted to bring that up and talk about that. How important a priority should that be in this of all places?
Right. But, Mississippi treats health culturally.
Horribly.
Right. Yeah. So it's not a wonder.
Yeah.
It's just in keeping with the culture here.
So we got about 8 minutes to go in the segment, and I came across something today on Twitter from popular black columnist whose name is escaping me right now. I didn't jot it down either. But that caused me, and he mentioned this article from ABC News about outsourcing affirmative action. And so I had to look it up. So I looked it up, and I'll try and it's a little bit of words here now, so I'll try and share it with you, to build on the talk that we had last week about affirmative action. So this lady, Susan Donaldson James, a white lady, saying it's been 46 years after the term affirmative action was first coined, efforts to help economically disadvantaged are shifting as American universities cater to an elite class of socially successful blacks, according to this lady that wrote this report. And then those perceptions are echoed in a study published by the American Journal of Education that shows universities are, in effect, outsourcing affirmative action. The study says the nation's elite colleges are bolstering their diversity quotas with black immigrants from Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, many of whom are wealthier, better educated, and easier to get along with than their American-born counterparts, according to this study. According to the study, 13% of the nation's college-age black population comes from outside the countries. And at the top university, that number goes up to 25%. I know this is going to generate a discussion. It said that it said, meaning in the study, immigrant students are often favored because they're highly motivated and get better grades because they can afford test preparation. Many universities brag about diversity, but their admissions policy increasingly reflect race and social class rather than economic need. Affirmative action is no longer, according to this association's executive director, affirmative action is no longer a compensation for past discriminations. Today, it is divorced from overcoming disadvantage.
That word disadvantage always bugs me anyway, because what they're saying is it's divorced from overcoming racism. So in the maintenance of racism, we choose black people who are not citizens of this country. And basically the reason why they do that is the same reason why they picked Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, because neither one of them have
instead
lineage.
of Cornel West.
Right, yeah. And the reason for it is because neither one of them have a lineage through enslavement.
Right.
right? Barack Obama's black side is from East Africa, not West Africa, where the Ma'afa, the great disaster of kidnapping black people and dragging them to America occurred. So with that separation, they feel white people feel far more comfortable in choosing those. They don't feel like, oh goodness, I have to rationalize for behaviors that I've committed against your people because you just got here 2 weeks ago.
Give themselves a way out.
Give themselves a way out.
They can keep thinking the way they think.
Right.
They don't have to change anything.
And it's not about affording, by the way. It's not the people that are coming from Africa, which I can speak on. People coming from Africa aren't doing higher test preparations. They're not doing that. The fact of the matter is that education is so much better in Africa that a person who graduates from high school in Africa typically has an education level that is equivalent to an associate's degree in America.
Wow.
It's that much better. That's the reason why you have white students now who need papers written, are actually contacting and contracting people from Kenya to write their papers.
Amazing. Didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's a big business now.
So now I got to throw the issue in here.
Yes.
Because I'm reading this article, and you know, I gave you like a couple of paragraphs worth of Mr. Williams reminding us Colin Powell might have been in that group as well.
That's another one.
Yes. And so, thank you, Mr. Williams. And so I'm reading that article, and there was a few dates in that article.
Okay.
Well, all of a sudden, when I got to the end of the article, and it didn't reflect what just happened in the Supreme Court last week,
right,
I thought, oh heck, what's the date on this article? So I scrolled back up. This article that all that information comes from is 16 years old.
Wow.
From 2007. So here's a national accomplished writer for ABC, NBC, NPR, some ungodly number of articles in her resume or something about different topics and all. Apparently, is the kind of writer that does the research and sees some stuff going on. Of course, she has her own biases like every writer.
Right.
But to think that that type of thing was considered the norm, even Maati, even if 75% of that's accurate.
Right. And it's not.
Okay, what percent do you think is accurate?
Well, let's see. I'm not really even sure. I don't know if I can put a percentage on it because she says she refers to black people born in America as disadvantaged. Economically disadvantaged, disadvantaged.
Yeah.
What do you mean by disadvantaged? I mean, she sounds like the problem with black people in America is not systemic, but the problem with black people is black people.
I agree. I hear what you're saying, but I think we're talking about two different things. If you ask me if I think that stuff has been going on for years and years and years here, I'm going to say yes, it has.
Well, sure. I mean, you're talking about racism and discrimination.
It's just a different shade. It's like a first cousin, and you can use those different kind of words there, but would we put this past those Ivy League schools? Would we put this past the Harvards and the Yales? No. But
I mean, we can't put it past any of the predominantly white institutions in America.
Right.
This is what they do. It is not, socially, what she calls the elite class of socially successful blacks. Black what? I'm not exactly sure. Black cars are black people, but I'll assume black people. The problem I have with her is that she is just completely out of touch and erroneous in terms of the way that she looks at black people in America.
I couldn't agree with you more. Wouldn't be possible to agree more.
My problem is when she's talking about immigrant black immigrants
Right.
from Africa
Right.
and South America. She needs to own up to the reason why they can be considered more favored. First of all, they don't remember the racism that occurred here because they weren't here.
Right.
You know, so if you have a black person who just sets foot in America, you don't have to worry about analysis such as critical race theory.
Sure.
They're new to all of this.
Yeah.
You know, racism is a global event, but the specifics of American-style racism is something that they haven't personally experienced. So they have to get here, and they get some of that, but they don't get all of that. And it's hard for them to translate everything that's occurring here.
I couldn't help but connect it somehow. You know, if any of that is true, you know, and then I couldn't help but try to make connection with what. So if this is not seeing things the way they really are, even though some of this stuff is actually happening, we know that to be true. Then you have the out of touch majority of the Supreme Court, or maybe not a majority, but I don't know. Maybe that's too wide a brush, but I would think numerous people on that Supreme Court are, you know, not, just don't really grasp what's really going on. They don't have, as you said, the lived experience, nor do I think they lose any sleep at night trying to educate themselves. That's why I sent them all a copy of the book White Rage. Mm-hmm. But now there's different people up there. But anyway,
I mean, they don't know what they don't know. They don't want to know.
Right.
But I don't think it's a case of ignorance, as you're saying. I think it's a case of they are promoters and sustainers of a white racist system.
So you think they know all about it, and it's just deliberate behavior?
Right. It's part and parcel.
Under the guise of law.
Yeah. Well, you know, law is one of the areas of human interaction that Dr. Neely Fuller defines when he talks about white racism.
Right.
So, yes. So law is clear. Absolutely. The way it's applied and the way that it's interpreted.
I have no doubt we're going to be back on this subject again,
Once
too.
again.
It's just that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've gone over, but we thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll definitely be back next Monday, and hopefully bring you some more topics and get some engaging discussion. Thank you, people, for entering the chat, and hope you have a great week. This coming week, and take good care of yourselves and those around you. We'll see you back next Monday night.